Hello and welcome to Digital Marketing This Week. It's episode 30. This one's all about a beginner's guide to retargeting. All right, so this is of course brought to you by Seriously Simple Marketing. My name, Chris Mercer, optimization expert, content developer, host of Digital Marketing This Week. Yes, I have done a bunch of retargeting stuff, so we'll talk about some of that. And just call me Mercer. Okay, so this week's focus topic is all about retargeting. So you may have heard of retargeting. So we're going to jump into that and discuss all the ins and outs. If you have a question and you're watching us live, you can enter your question now, of course, or just jump in the chat room. And if you are watching this later or listening to this on a podcast after the fact, just jump over to SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com. There is a free little opt-in you can sign up for. Again, completely free. You can join the Insiders Club and then participate with us live or ask your own questions. And what we do is we'll cover the questions after kind of the official part of the show, and then you can get a recording of those as well. So only for insiders. Remember, your goal from this episode is to get just one idea, act on that one idea, and repeat. Again, retargeting is one of those things that can kind of get overwhelming really, really quickly because there's a little bit to it. We're going to try to simplify it as much as possible during this particular episode and give you an idea of what it is, how it works, how you might use it, and then we'll go through a strategy you can use with Facebook, which is one of the easier ones to set up. All right, so let's jump back into this. It's all about retargeting. Why should you care about this? Well, first and foremost, you're going to get a better understanding of retargeting. And you will hear, if you have not heard about this already, you will hear a lot about this because this is ultimately the best way to reach out to your customers or prospects, and it's also the cheapest way to do it, which we'll talk about. We're going to give you some tips on how you can get started, and then of course we're going to go over a quick strategy that you can put into action today, specifically with Facebook advertising. And even if you're not doing any paid media on Facebook, you can still do this, which is kind of the most important part here. And of course we'll cover a little bit more. So let's talk about this, a beginner's guide to retargeting. What exactly is retargeting? Well, when you're out doing your internet thing, all right, you're out there browsing on stuff and you're shopping for tires on one site, then you're going over to Amazon and taking a look at a book. And in the States, we've got this big office supply store called Staples. And so I'll myself go to Staples and look for different, ink cartridges or something like that. And all of a sudden you start seeing these ads that follow you around. So I go to Staples and look at ink cartridges, and then all of a sudden Staples is advertising to me on every site, it seems, that I'm visiting around the web. And that's essentially what's retargeting, or what retargeting is. Now, how this thing works, again, is when you go, let's use this tires shopping, right? So you go shopping for tires for your car. What happens is when you're on that website, there's a little pixel, there's a piece of code, and it's called pixels, but they're just pieces of tracking code, just like Google Analytics is tracking code. That's all these little pixels are. So you take this little pixel, this little tracking code, and it records that you visited that website, and it reports back. So here's what happens. So you go with tire shopping, you visit the website, then all of a sudden drops a pixel is what it's called. It's called dropping a pixel. But all it really means is that the pixel code gets read along with the rest of the website itself and loads up. The pixel then reports back to the ad network from whence it came. And this is an important part here. So every ad network has a different pixel that is unique to it. So, we'll cover this in a little bit, but Facebook has their own pixels, Google has their own pixels, other ad networks like Site Scout have their own pixels, and pretty much any advertising platform, things like Twitter as an advertising platform, anything that does paid media advertising, more than likely will have their own retargeting pixel that you can grab. So again, the pixel will report back to the ad network that, okay, well, this person just visited the site. And this is all pretty much done with cookies. So for those of you who are sort of like, wondering how this physically happens, it's a pixel that's dropped, the browser records it, and now you've got a little cookie on your browser that says, oh, this person visited this site. So now that the ad network knows that you visited tire shopping, right, this particular site on, like, let's say it's tireshopping.com, and now you go to a different site. So now you're on maybe our blog, right? If we were doing advertising. And so if we have our blog and maybe we sell space to this ad network, and again, I'm going to use an example ad network called Site Scout. It actually is a true thing. And if you're a publisher, you can go to Site Scout and you can say, well, I've got a really popular blog and I would like to show ads, and it rotates ads through that. It doesn't randomly, I shouldn't say that, but it does insert the ads for you into your blog, right? And so you've got all these little ads that are rotating through. Now, how it decides what ads to show on your blog, and it basically it's looking at what your blog's about, but really it's also looking about this retargeting. So if it sees like, oh, well, this particular person, because your browser will load up and your browser will say, oh, well, here's a cookie. It'll actually look for the cookie. and it'll say like, oh, well, there's a cookie that shows that they were also looking at tireshopping.com. So let's put in the tireshopping.com ad. And all of a sudden it shows you an ad for the tires that maybe you're looking at. And that's how the whole retargeting process works. And of course, the idea is that you click on that ad, you go back to the tireshopping.com site and you buy your tires. And so that's sort of how retargeting works. So again, I'm going to cover that just kind of real quick overview. You'll start at a website, let's say tireshopping.com. That drops the pixel, which the ad network now knows that you're interested in tires because you just were on tireshopping.com. The ad network knows that. So now tireshopping.com is paying the ad network to display its ads on various blogs, like just a typical blog or website or anything else. And now it knows, the ad network knows to show the tireshopping.com ad to this particular person who's visiting because the pixel was dropped and there's a cookie in their browser. And that's how the retargeting works. And again, ideally this person clicks and then goes back to tire shopping and buys the actual tires. So that's a little bit of how retargeting works. Now, to get just slightly more advanced, you can turn off and turn on pixels. They have what they call kill pixels, which is basically if somebody purchased tires on tireshopping.com. So let's walk through the process. And I don't have a diagram for this, but I'll walk through it with you. So if they buy on tireshopping.com, and where they come to tireshopping.com, they do a bunch of searches, but they do not buy, right? As soon as they start doing searches for tires, it drops one particular pixel. If they buy, you can tell the ad network will give you what they call a kill pixel, which basically says, okay, well, now that they bought, just fire this pixel, which is a kill pixel, so that the ad network knows, okay, well, I'm not going to advertise. And this is annoying. We've all done this, right? You actually buy something on somebody's site and they still hound you with ads to buy the same thing you just bought. Worse yet, maybe they give you a discount or a sale, right? It's kind of ridiculous. Well, you can stop that. There are ways to do that. And it's different with every ad network, but there are ways to absolutely do that so that you're not each ad network has their own pixels. So what happens is, remember, a pixel is just a piece of tracking code. It's all it is, just tracking code you copy and paste into your browser, into your website, right, into the page that's loading, just like you do with Google Analytics code. It's exactly the same thing. So however, if you've ever installed Google Analytics code into your site, it's exactly the same thing, just a little piece of tracking script. So it's super easy, copy and paste. And each individual ad network, and when you're thinking about retargeting or remarketing, you want to think about the ad in terms of ad network. So Google has their own tracking script. Facebook has their own tracking script, and other networks have their own. So like networks like SiteScout or Twitter or Outbrain, they all have their own remarketing or retargeting scripts. And that actually brings up another quick point I want to make. The actual term is retargeting. Google calls it remarketing. So whenever you hear people talk about remarketing, it's just, that's what Google calls retargeting. But the overall concept is called retargeting. Google just calls theirs remarketing. So when you're in Google looking around AdSense or AdWords or the display network for your pixel, it's the remarketing pixel is what they're going to call it. But it is this exact same thing. There's no difference. It's just two different words for the exact same thing. But retargeting is kind of the overall industry usage of the term. So again, what this is going over here is we want to make sure that you understand each individual ad network has their own unique tracking scripts, their own unique pixels. So let's say you've got Facebook, Google, and SiteScout. Okay, so SiteScout is basically an ad network where you can put up banner ads. And if you're an advertiser, you can enter your banner ads into SiteScout and then say, advertise them on these types of sites. And then you can go back and say, and retarget people who have seen my page, my sales page, but have not bought, right? So you can do things like that on SiteScout. Same thing on Google, same thing on Facebook. So what happens is you've got all these little retargetings that could happen. So for example, if you're advertising on Facebook and then you go to my page, right? So let's say I'm advertising something like Seriously Simple Analytics for our own purposes, right? So we advertise Seriously Simple Analytics on our Facebook page. People click on the ad, they come back to Seriously Simple Analytics, but they don't purchase. Okay, so they don't see a thank you page. Well, I can set up retargeting so that when you go back to Facebook, you're seeing Facebook. I can also set up retargeting so that when you're in your Gmail account, And this is the free Gmail accounts, not like the paid apps, or anywhere on Google, to be honest, where we're advertising on Google search, things like that. I could remarket back to you. So when you go back to Google, you'll see this ad. And I can also do the same thing. So like when you go to your favorite blog, if your favorite blog is using the ad network Site Scout, which again, a lot of blogs do, thousands and thousands of them do, then you may see my ad there. So all of a sudden it looks like I'm following you everywhere if you haven't purchased yet, offering you different reasons of why you want to purchase Seriously Simple Analytics. And it's because of those retargeting pixels. And again, the idea is that when they click on those different ads, however the method of the ad is, but when they click on these different ads, they're going back to my website. So there's just some examples of kind of how it works and how you might want to use it. So let's talk about how to set up retargeting. Now I'm going to do an overview here, and then we'll do a live demonstration. So when you use something like Facebook, and I'm going to say Facebook's the easiest one to get started with because it's probably likely that you have an account already set up with Facebook. If you don't, it's easy to create one. So you just want to jump in and do that. But all that needs to happen here is you're going to go through and you're going to log in and you're going to go into, now when I say log in, we're not talking personal accounts anymore. This is business.facebook.com because this is all about advertising, right? So when you go to your business account, you're going to go click where it says audiences. And then when you click on audiences, there's going to be a button that says create audience. Okay, so you go to audiences, then you click on the button that says create audience. Then you get a pixel from that, right? So you actually just create the audience and then you choose your pixel. And I'm going to show you how to do that live in just a second. And then once you have that pixel, it'll just start doing its own thing. And then when you're ready to advertise, when you're actually able to, or when you're ready to target a specific group and remarket, right, to retarget them, you just type in the audience that you created. So it really is that simple. So let me show you exactly how this whole thing works because I just think it's much better when you can see it. So I'm going to flip over here. So this is our business manager account. So I'm going to blow this up a little bit so you can see everything. Okay, so I'm going to click into our business account here for advertising. You can see on the left-hand side, this is what we're talking about, this little audiences section. So we're click where it says audiences. Okay, let that load up. And once it officially comes back to us. Okay, so now we've got our audiences and we set up here, we're gonna create audience. Now you can see in mine, I've already created a bunch of different ones, which is fine. So we created those a while back, but I'm gonna show you exactly how these work. So I'm gonna go to create audience and I'm gonna go to custom audience. Okay, so you see these three different things. We want custom audience. So now from here, let's say website traffic. Okay, so you can do this with a customer list, by the way. You can retarget your own customers. Now, this is unique to each ad network. Not all ad networks do this, but Facebook does. They allow you to upload a bunch of emails of buyers or phone numbers or other data that you may have about your customers, and then you can target them on Facebook. But we're going to do website traffic because that's really what retargeting is kind of known as. And that's the one that all advertising networks do, no matter what. So some will do advanced stuff like customer lists, but everybody does this website traffic. So we're going to cover this. So I'm going to click where it says website traffics, right? All right, so what I want to do is you can put in here, you can define when this pixel is to report back to Facebook. Okay, this is what this basically is. It's a rule that says, when should we alert Facebook and say, yes, this person is somebody who should be in this particular group. So you can make it, like you can see here, anybody who visits the website at all, anybody who visits specific pages, or anybody who visits some pages but not others, right? This is where you can kind of get a little advanced with the, people who have seen my sales page, but they have not seen my thank you page, which means they haven't purchased, so you can do things like that. Or people that just haven't visited in a certain time. So just for kicks, we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna do people who haven't visited in a certain time. And let's say people who have not visited my website in the last, let's say 60 days. Okay, now again, if we were really setting this up in some sort of campaign, it would be more toward people that have seen a specific sales page, but just for sake of example, I'll show you how to do this. All right, so then you type all the stuff in, and then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna name this, and I'm just gonna name this test audience. I'm not really gonna keep it, I'm just doing this to show you. And then you click on create audience. Okay, so far pretty quick. Takes about a minute to really get this set up, maybe a couple of minutes. And Facebook says, great, everything's ready. All right, so now what you do is you go back and you grab the pixel. So you can see here where it says test audience. So I'm gonna click on that. And now if you have never set up a pixel yet, it might say something like, well, great, here's your pixel code, in which case that's what you want. But if you've already set one up or you just forgot how to do it, which is kind of what I'm showing you here, you're gonna click on the audience that you're interested in, you click on actions, you go to view pixel. Okay, so there's view pixel. And I'm gonna zoom back out here. You can see at the bottom, this is our code, right? This is our pixel code. So this is the part, and it gives you directions. It's just like Google Analytics. You put it right above the head or right in the head tags, right? So you would copy this out and then you paste it into your website. Fires off this pixel. So it doesn't matter if they see a blog post, an offer, a thank you page, an opt-in, a download, it doesn't matter. Anything that triggers this, every single page in my site will trigger this pixel because I put this pixel all over every single page. And then what I do is I tell Facebook, we'll just create an audience of the people who saw my sales page but did not see the thank you page. Or here's the people, create an audience of people who read the Digital Marketing This Week blog posts, right? So we could do that. Or in this case, I said we've got this little test audience, and this technically would be people who have not visited the site, in the last 60 days. So now that we've got this all created, let's say I wanted to go back and create a new ad. And I'm only going to do this partially, but just enough to show you. So you go to create an ad, and I'm just going to make it something quick and easy. So let's just send people to the website. I'll pick some random URL for now just to show you. So we'll tell it, in this case, going to an offer for SSA. And Facebook will take a second just to make sure that the page is really there. And evidently it will take more than a second. There's nothing like live. Okay, here we go. So now it's pulled up, right? So now we've got our page. And now as I scroll down, and this is the part that we showed you earlier, we scroll down, you'll see what says choose a custom audience. So here is where you can say include, and you'll notice all the different groups that pull up. So in this case, it shows I've got 500 people that have been to my site but haven't been back in the last 60 days. So I could advertise, like for example, a real life scenario, I could advertise a promoted post. So I could create a new blog post and then advertise that post just to those people who haven't been back to the site in a little while, just as a reason to bring them back. Or if I had a new product offering, right? So if you were an e-commerce store and you had a new product offering or a different color t-shirt or a different size shoe, whatever the new thing was, you could advertise this new thing to the people who had visited that page before but have not been back in the last 60 days. So lots of fun stuff that you can do with this. But that's really it. Then you would just set up your ads like you would normally do. And again, we've done a previous Digital Marketing This Week episode on how to get started with Facebook ads. So we won't cover that stuff here. But ideally, this gives you a really good kind of working overview of how the whole advertising, remarketing, retargeting issue works, right? All right, so let's talk about ways that you can use this. And I'll bring up all three of these here. So one we talked about, which is people who saw your cart but didn't purchase. This is important. It's called cart abandonment. And you are probably exposed to this as a user, as a customer of somebody else more often than anything else. Because what will happen is you'll go to see their sales page. You might even go to the load it in the cart, click add to cart, and then that's doing it. And it's okay, Facebook, whenever somebody sees my cart page, but they do not see my thank you page, it means they didn't purchase. So put them in a group of people who abandoned cart and advertise this particular ad to those people. That's all it is. Now you could also do people who bought your product, but not the upsell. So there's a great way to do it. So people who actually did see the thank you page, but did not see the upsells thank you page, right? Which might be either another upsell or a downsell. And so you could define the exact same mechanism and do that. You could do it with opt-ins, right? We don't have it listed here, but that's a way you could do it. So if you're not selling anything, but you're trying to get leads, it's the exact same thing. So people that saw your opt-in page to get an email or didn't take whatever that particular action is that you wanted them to, right? So they didn't see that thank you page or that destination page or the official confirmation of their sign-up page, whatever that page was, you could still advertise that same thing to them. And you can also do it for people like we talked about with blog posts, people who saw a particular blog post and advertise back to them. So we could set up a bunch of different blog posts and define all these different blog posts that contain the word analytics. And then we would know, okay, well, these are people that saw analytics blog posts. So let's advertise this new analytics blog post that we made and just published. And let's advertise it to the people who are reading already our analytics blog post so that they see it in Facebook. So we could do that. You could also do this as an affiliate play. I actually had somebody ask me a question about affiliate marketing. Can you do retargeting with affiliate marketing? And absolutely you can do that. So a way you might do that is, let's say you've got a blog post review site, right? So you cut this little blog review site, and let's say coffee makers is your thing. And so you've got an article on a coffee maker that somebody sees, right? Well, you can retarget them. Now you know they're interested in coffee makers. And what you can do then is you can then retarget them, right? So you can retarget them and show more ads for your site, different pages, different reviews you set up on other coffee makers, because they saw that first one. And so you can retarget them that way. So there's lots of interesting, fun ways. The other thing you can do is, if you know somebody likes coffee makers, chances are they are buying coffee. So now you can advertise the coffee to them, and you can retarget them with a similar product. And again, it doesn't have to be yours. It can be affiliate marketing. It doesn't really matter who the product is. It just matters that you're able to get this audience and have a relevant ad, right? Maybe you advertise powdered cream to them. I mean, there's all sorts of things, coffee mugs, like there's all sorts of things that people that are looking at coffee makers would be interested in purchasing. And so coffee filters, the list goes on. So that's kind of how you can use the retargeting. And of course, if you have your own e-commerce store, it's even easier to do that. So there's lots of different ways that you can use retargeting. Now, let's talk about the benefits of retargeting. First off, pixels are free. It doesn't cost you anything. And I want to emphasize this by saying you do not have to have a paid media campaign. So I have talked to lots of people who have said, well, I want to do a retargeting campaign, but I'm not ready to pay advertising yet. I don't really do any paid advertising. Well, that's all well and good, except that it doesn't matter. So you can create your Facebook account for free, right? So just go to business.facebook.com, set up your account. You can create a custom audience pixel for free. You can place that custom audience pixel on your website, still isn't costing you anything. And what's happening is Facebook is still keeping track of all of these different people that are taking all of these different actions based on how you set up your custom audience pixels. And more importantly, because that pixel's on there, even if you're not quite sure like how to define your custom audiences, it doesn't matter, because you can go back, because Facebook's recording when people are seeing your site all the time, because let's say you put that pixel on the page, because it's recording that constantly, you can always go back. So maybe like 6 months from now, you decide you want to do paid advertising, you go in there and you can say, okay, well, let's create an audience of people who saw, my first blog post ever. And Facebook has an entire history of all those people still. So it will go back and it will build that custom audience pixel for you. And it'll actually create that custom audience so you can advertise just to those people. But if you don't do the pixel now, you won't have all that data. Okay, so it's kind of like with Google Analytics. Like, you want to start putting Google Analytics on your site as early as possible, because the more data you track, the better you're going to be able to make decisions in the future, right? And if you don't start tracking until you're like ready to start marketing, then you have no data to look back on. And so it's the same thing with retargeting, right? Retargeting, completely free service. Nobody charges for this. You can do this with Site Scout. You can open up an account with Site Scout. You can open up an account with Google. You can get all of these different retargeting is not as good as list building, because it's much better if you have their email. But like, list building in the cloud is like second best, because what happens is you've got all these people that are being tracked, all these different advertising networks are tracking them, and they're keeping tabs on where they're going, and people that have seen your site and other sites, whatever. And so now when you're ready, you say, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and spend a couple $100 with some advertising. I want to retarget people who have seen my sales page but have not purchased, and there'll be a list there, because you had the retargeting on your site already, because you had that retargeting, those tracking scripts, those pixels already on your site. So remember, if you don't do that, you just start, now you got to kind of wait, right? It's what they call seasoning the pixel. You have to wait for that pixel to be seasoned. So if enough people come through it to actually get you some meaningful data. But if you start today, even if you're not ready for 6 months from now, at least when you're ready, you'll be that much further ahead. So I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, feel free to ask a clarifying question. So at the end of the day, retargeting is all about segmentation. And when you get really, really good at this, to really kick this into this higher level, this is the pro tip that I'm gonna give you. This is your professional tip here. Expert level stuff you're about to hear. Think about retargeting in terms of a funnel. Here's what I mean by that. When you first come to your, let's say it's a sales page, and they come to your sales page, there's a certain conversation that's happening, right? Certain mindset that brought them to the sales page, and it's certain objections. And let's say they go to your cart. So they've clicked on, yes, I want to buy this thing, add it to my cart. They go to the cart and they leave, they abandon. You don't want to basically send them the same ad again that got them to go to the sales page, because that ad's job, ad number one, was to get them to go to the sales page. So ad number two, right, this retargeting ad has a different job. Its job is get them to complete the purchase because they abandoned the cart. So that means they went through the sales page and they were interested enough to make a click. So the sales page kind of did its job. Its job is to get them to go to the cart, but the cart wasn't able to pull them through to a purchase. So something happened in that process. Could be a question about security, or could be a question about the guarantee, could be all sorts of things, right? Maybe they're looking for testimonials, maybe they had a question. And so your second ad that they're going to see, and now this is when retargeting kicks in, right? So this ad that they're seeing through retargeting should address maybe some of those concerns, like, hey, we've got a 10% discount off shipping, or 20, just a reminder, free shipping on the products, on our coats, or whatever their product was, right? Whatever product was your advertising. The same generic ad you want to send them an ad that specifically addresses that particular upsell, or why they didn't take it, and give them a reason to do that. 20% discount if you act in the next 3 days, stuff like that. And if the better that you get at segmenting these little micro conversations that you're having as you're working them through the funnel. So essentially, if they ever leave the funnel, there's retargeting that brings them back, and it brings them back in a way that it knows, okay, well, I'm going to bring you back, but you're going to come back into the middle part of the funnel, because that's how this retargeting whole thing works. You can just click them back into whatever URL you want them to. So think about that. Think about in terms of building this sort of list building in the cloud, right? And it's about a funnel. Think about this in terms of a funnel. And again, I'll be happy to help any of the insiders that are listening to this now or later if you want with questions on clarification for that. All right, so what was your one idea? Was it how to get started with this whole thing? Was it the different ways that you can use retargeting? Was it this particular Facebook strategy, right? And the Facebook is the easiest one to set up, and this is it. You go through, you create your pixel, you season it, meaning you start it now, even if you're not wanting to do paid advertising until later. And then when you go back, you can do promote a blog post to an affiliate product if you want. I mean, you can do all sorts of stuff. Okay, so let's move on. Action brings results of all of these. So no matter what you do, whether it's this Facebook strategy, whether it's Site Scout, whether it's just kind of an ad network to get started with, and then take action on that ad network and get started. Okay, so we're about to finish up. This is the official end of the content portion. So we're gonna move in now. I'm gonna sort of jump off the virtual stage and have a conversation with everybody in the insiders room in the chat. But again, if you're listening to this, or if you're watching this pre-recorded, recorded, I should say, because it is of course recorded live. But if you're watching this later after the fact, please join us. It's free, completely free. We like helping everybody out. It makes the chat room a lot more entertaining. Just go to seriouslysimplemarketing.com. You'll see the opt-in there to join us live, and we'll see you on the next live episode of Digital Marketing This Week. And with that, the official end of episode 30, a beginner's guide to retargeting. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you on the next episode of Digital Marketing This Week.